Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew from Tulip Valley Farms, and I am so excited to be joined on this podcast episode with my good friend, the executive director of the Skagit Valley Tulip Festival, Cindy Verge. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. It's my
You
pleasure
bet.
to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, Cindy, let's just jump right in. For people who may have heard of the tulips up in Skagit Valley before but don't know anything about the festival, would you introduce the festival and yourself and start wherever you're comfortable?
Well, the festival started over 40 years ago, and the Mount Vernon Chamber of Commerce said, "Hey, we got folks coming up here to see these flowers, so we should do something." And they did it during a retreat, and at that time there were four tulip growers. Sounds familiar, like there
Yeah.
are four tulip growers today, 40 years later. And those growers said, yeah, we think that's a great idea. So that first year, there was a doll exhibition. There were hot air balloon rides. There was a barbecue. There were some things, a bowling tournament even. There were things that we don't even have today. Hot air balloons, incidentally, the reason we don't is guess what the wind does in April? And
Yep.
it's really bad when you have to go chasing balloons as they get blown up towards Whatcom County
Oh,
or south towards Everett.
I
And
know. I
yeah,
challenged our team. I said, "Find me hot air balloons," because my friends down at Woodburn at the Wooden Shoe Tulip Festival have them, and that was the exact response. Can't do it, not even tethered. Too much of a target. So,
yep. And that's because we did it for a couple of years and finally just gave up because it didn't
yeah,
work. So that
yeah,
was 40 years ago.
yeah.
And
Well,
then we grew and past those just one weekend events, and pretty soon we were 10 days.
mhm.
And so we went along at 10 days. And when I joined the festival in 1999, we were at 17 days, kind of 3 weekends and the time in between. And in 2003, we switched to all 30 days of April, right at the time I was hired as executive director. And we did that because, can you tell me, Andrew, exactly when those tulips of yours are going to bloom?
I cannot, and it doesn't matter how many times I ask them; they're not telling me. And Mother Nature is also mum. She laughs back at me, but I have no idea when they're going to bloom.
Yes, one of my favorite comments of someone asking, when are the tulips going to bloom? He was a bishop from one of our local churches. And he was saying, and finally I just laughed and I said, you're probably a lot closer to that source than I am.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's why we went to 30 days and recognizing that we could schedule our events and activities that answer the and more. So we have tulips and we have more.
Mhm.
And so a street fair was added. We have a Kiwanis Salmon barbecue that has been for years. All the art shows that go on, the Pack Car open house. We've had bike rides. We've had runs. This year we added a pickleball tournament. There's a youth basketball tournament that's part of the Tulip Festival. So there's so many different things that happen that people can come here to the valley to enjoy before or after they go and see the tulips. And it's been a very interesting growth because, well, one, what we're doing now did not exist when I joined the festival.
Mhm.
The Tulip Festival website page was an info page.
Mhm.
That was it.
Right.
Instagram wasn't here. Facebook wasn't here. There's been probably a dozen different social media things that have came and gone over my tenure with the festival. And so that's been a huge growth of learning how to navigate the social media and what works best for the festival and what we do. Had some real interesting times. We've moved locations a couple of times because we started out part of the Chamber of Commerce. And so we had two desks in the Chamber of Commerce office. And finally, when we got to be about 20, we decided it was time to move out.
Yeah.
And at the time I said, it's kind of like when your kids are 20,
Yeah.
that's when you move out.
Got a couple of
And
those. Yeah.
we have always been located in Mount Vernon. And really that fits because Mount Vernon's kind of it's our county seat.
Mhm.
It's the largest city, and it is a place that is easy for people to find. People debate whether it's the Mount Vernon Tulip Festival or the LaConner Tulip Festival sometimes. And sometimes Burlington and Anacortes get thrown in there too. Woolley doesn't usually, Cedar Woolley doesn't. And then over time, we've just kind of refined what we do a lot. And we've had some downturns. The 2008 recession that we had when the housing market crashed, that was a very interesting time. 9/11 was extremely interesting. When sitting in my office and had somebody come in and say, "Can we possibly use your internet? We're stuck."
Mhm.
Because everything was grounded.
Right.
They had to get hold of people. And so there's been, just as our nation's history, we were in the Carnation building when the Nisqually quake hit, the one that moved the Capitol building dome. It moved it in Olympia. Well, you felt it clear up here, even though the epicenter was down towards Olympia. And now, of course, COVID hit us just as it hit everybody else. It was, I described it as everything was great. We were going along, and then poof, it was gone in 2020. And that was the only tulip festival that I've ever cried over.
You and me both. That was my first. Yeah.
And it was just all gone. And one of the bright spots of that, though, is we have an online store, and we sell our festival merchandise in that store. And that year, we grossed over $14,000 in merchandise. And you have to understand, the most expensive item we had on there was probably $40.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a lot of magnets and T-shirts and cups. And I was so grateful that I could still come in and process those orders and do those orders, because it was just me, myself, and I in our office because everything was shut down. And I would carry boxes down to the post office. But it really said to me, our fans are still there. And one of the things that I really was pleased to be able to do during the festival that year, everything was shut down, but I realized people were hungry for something that was positive and bright. And I got out into one of the tulip fields and just walked and took a video.
Right.
And I think that reached over 750,000 people. And that's pretty cool when you can do really things like that.
No.
And so we keep on going. And this year it's really exciting. We're adding Tulip Valley Farms to the festival slate. Having 4 tulip farms again is just tremendous. Each one is so different. We discussed that at our board meeting yesterday. Everyone has a little bit different thing that they're doing and different offerings, and that's what makes it really cool. And it allows us to introduce different things to folks that come here. They get to know our valley. We added a passport program this year, electronic passport program. So it sends people to different things. They can earn points towards prizes, sweepstakes, those kinds of things. And I'm really looking forward. I hope people take full advantage of it, because we've got points up in Concrete, Cedar Woolley, Anacortes, Snow Goose Produce is on there, Christensen's Nursery. We've got the Quanah Salmon Barbecue. So those are all things people can go and find and experience when they come here. Because we both know this is just, I don't know if it's the best corner of the world, but it certainly has to be right up there.
Yeah, if it's not, you can see it from here, right? I tell people all the time on our farm, if you look over there, that's Mount Rainier. And 90 degrees later, you're looking at the Olympics, and a little bit more, you're seeing the San Juans. And if you turn all the way around, there's Mount Baker and the North Cascade foothills. And so our natural beauty, and that is ultimately, and I've been studying this opportunity for a while, the tulips and the strategic advantages of being halfway between Seattle and Vancouver and the 6.5 million people that want what we have. We're certainly the envy of every tulip, every area in the world that can grow tulips wishes that they had, what we have. And as you mentioned, we have a 40-year history of connecting people who want to see this explosion of spring color in ways that is adapting, as is the changing nature of the way that our urban neighbors really interact with agriculture. I think that's one of the things that kind of not paying attention to it, and for most of my life, and then organizing my life around it for the last 5 years, has been really exciting to watch. And I wonder if in your tenure at the Tulip Festival, if you've seen some of the change, how has the visit changed? I think I've heard from people that, in the 80s or early 90s, you could hop in your car in Seattle and drive up here and see 4,000 acres of color and be home in time for dinner and not have to deal with traffic or any of those other things. And that might have been good. But now we have a lot more people that are wanting to see, perhaps a shrinking number of or a smaller number of field tulips, but yet the nature is changing because, you don't get to park on the side of the road anymore and run out in the middle of a field that you weren't supposed to be in to begin with. Right. And so I guess to rephrase
Yes.
how have you seen that change? The Tulip Festival goers, what's different?
Well, they've become a little more sophisticated, recognizing that more and more people are wanting to come, and our whole area has grown, and I think that's part of it. We have more people here. Our roads are busier. When folks arrive and they're upset because they've been in their car for 5 hours, they weren't in their car for 5 hours because of the traffic of the Tulip Festival. We'll
Right.
take a little bit of that, but if they're journeying from points south here or even sometimes down from the Canadian border, you can get caught up in traffic because the I-5 corridor has become so busy. And so we've continually worked on that. Every year, the county's added roundabouts to help with traffic flow. We've got more sophisticated at trying to get messages out about alternate routes. With people all the time of, oh, could you come on the weekdays? Those kinds of things. I think change is inevitable. And I think all of us have times in the past that we miss. But we would like to continue on and experience what there is today. And that's what I keep trying to just communicate of, here's how you can do it and best. And I've noticed that folks in the cities, it's harder and harder to grasp how agriculture works. And that makes it more challenging because you can walk into a grocery store all the time thanks to the growers that have the greenhouse operations and buy a bunch of tulips.
Right.
So you don't know that really those tulips, that they're just this little window when they actually bloom in nature. Because our silly book of questions, well, why don't you have a tulip festival in July? Because the weather's so much nicer.
Right. Yeah.
And the guy that came in one of my first years working, and he hit the brochure on the counter. You guys are lying. There's no tulip fields out there. I went to every single one of these fields. And he had a map from 2 years earlier and didn't know about crop rotation.
Right.
And so those are things that we continuously try and work to get out and let people know about that cyclical nature of agriculture. And yeah, I know you want to come on May 25th, but there really aren't going to be tulips to see on May 25th. And, it's interesting.
Well,
because I think here in our valley, we're very connected with it.
We're right. You grow it's fish discover water last, and maybe it's those of us here in Skagit County that many, which have never even. That's been a bit of a shock, is that so many people that live here just completely. Now the traffic I get, but to come out and enjoy the tulips, it's just not on their radar to do. But I do want to highlight something here. You must have a mouse in your pocket because you talk about we an awful lot, and I think it's important that people know that the Tulip Festival staff, you really have a bare bones. Yeah, it's two people. This is not Seafair. We're not sponsored by Boeing or any of these massive corporate sponsors. You are really on a shoestring budget doing incredible work. And so thank you for that. And I wonder if you could help all of the listeners understand kind of what it's like to be. I mean, there's just the two of you that are, and then you volunteers that flex out during the festival time, but you're really running an entire year long. And that's the other thing. It's just, it takes an entire year to do what you do. I'm hoping you can help people understand that a little bit better. Because I didn't know.
Yeah. It's just me, myself, and I, and my sponsorship coordinator and her other two, imaginary beings there.
Right.
We're the full-time staff. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about the we, to me, that's the collective we of Skagit Valley.
Right.
Because that's my job, to bring people here to Skagit Valley, to have them enjoy the festival, and to kind of put an organizational structure around all of these independent activities, because the Tulip Festival doesn't grow tulips. Mm-hmm. We promote where the tulips are grown. We talk about how the tulips are grown. We don't run the art shows. We don't run the street fair or the salmon barbecue, but we promote all of those that are run by our community organizations and businesses. And so the we I talk about is that collective we. And because our staff is so small, we have to plan very well in advance when everything's going to happen. And we don't have the staff to kind of turn on those dimes. We have to say, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. And we're actually responsible for only one event, well, two during the Tulip Festival, the opening gala, the kickoff event, and then we do the Tulip Parade. And all the time folks say, well, let's do some more. And we're thinking, we can't.
Yeah.
Because we also help thousands of people that come in our front door looking for directions, for help in navigating the festival. We're running our website, social media pages, answering the phone, talking with media, doing podcasts like this, providing information to requesters. And we do that by having a core volunteer staff of, we have 17 very dedicated individuals that are seniors that are here helping. And they generally put in about 400 to 500 hours every April, keeping the festival staffed all 7 days a week and from 9 to 5 each day. And so that's our we.
Well, and you do, like you said, you do a lot of coordinating across other organizations, be it the chambers or elected officials, and bringing people together around things. And I think there's one of the things that I remember when we got into this is that people come and they're looking for the festival. What is the festival in the Tulip Festival, right? And so you do a lot of expectation management. I think if you were to say Cindy Verge, Executive Director, Skagit Valley Tulips Festival, a professional expectation manager, right? Where you snap your fingers and you're going to get a grower to do something that, and there's a whole host of relationships that you manage. And I want to say that one of the things that we pride ourselves out here in Skagit Valley are the importance of relationships and our authenticity. And sometimes those can be in tension, right? Especially when it comes to agriculture, or I know I've been studying the history of tulips, and there's always been a fierce competition associated with tulips and tulip growers. And we see that today in so many different things. And we're all where I love the term co-opetition, right? Because we've talked about this. We really hope that when people come to the Tulip Festival, that they go to all 4 farms, right? And actually doing yourself a disservice if you don't. If you sat in traffic for 4 hours and you don't make an effort to see as much of the full spectrum or the surface area of the farms, it's not. This is not a one and done festival, if you will. That is, people get to bring the party with them and then settle down to whatever kind of suits them. And I know you've got a tough job and constantly explaining. And I'll tell you, I'm getting feedback from folks that are calling the office asking about our farm. You know, we're a new farm and it's being well represented by your staff there. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
What would you?
You know, it's funny when you talk about the history of the Tulip Festival. So over the years, I've had the pleasure of going to tulip summits at different sites around the world. And I've learned that everything goes back to Holland.
Mhm.
But before Holland, the tulips were the properties of sultans.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a capital offense to steal a tulip bulb. And their gardeners were their executioners. And people from Turkey did this whole film on this history. And they talked about that you never wanted to have to go for a walk with the gardener because you didn't return.
Yeah.
And the way that Holland got started is a Dutch trader befriended, did a favor, helped a sultan, and he bequeathed tulips.
Right. Right. No,
and
it's
the rest is
fascinating.
history.
No, absolutely.
It's fascinating.
And being a mountain flower and a transplant, and people don't realize it's not local to here. Well, it's local to the mountains of Kazakhstan by way of Turkey, by way of Holland, and here we are. And it's an apt metaphor, I think, for our community in that it's also a symbol of renewal. And that's what I love about tulips is it's the most painful thing that we do, or is top the tulips, as part of their life cycle. When they're done being beautiful, they need to focus on growing. And that's something that as a community, also there's times and seasons for growing and for celebrating, and April is for celebrating, and for some of us, a lot of us, it's a lot of work that goes into that. But just an exquisite opportunity for us to share what we can grow here with our neighbors. What counsel would you give to a first-time Tulip Festival goer if somebody was sitting down to?
I suggest read. Go to our website, because our website really has a whole wealth of information of how it works, how you get here, how you get around, and you can find all of those events and activities that you might want to join. You can read about what different gardens are, how the ticketing works, and really get an introduction to our area. And so then you can plan. Do I want to come in the middle of the week when things are a little quieter, when perhaps there's not so many events and activities, but I can really explore the gardens, really explore the valley? Or do I want to come on the weekends and join the other few thousand people going through the PACCAR open house, and then hit a couple of tulip gardens and maybe do dinner at the salmon barbecue on the way out of town? Or do I want to spend the night? It really helps if you take that moment to plan, because you're going to have a better experience, and you will enjoy it better. Planning doesn't help if you want to know exactly when those tulips are going to bloom. But the really cool thing is that if you still plan that journey for the middle of April, you're going to do fine.
Right.
Because I was looking at your table of the tulips that you have at your place, and you've got those early varieties and those mid-season and those late season varieties. In the middle of April, something will be blooming.
Yep.
And tulips will be blooming, and they will be beautiful. And so, like, if you're coming from the East Coast, from Alaska in our country, or if you're planning a trip from last year, I talked to uh, sisters. One was from Vietnam and one was from California, and they met at the Skagit Valley Tulip Festival.
Uh-huh.
That middle of the month is just a good time to plan because you know that the blooms are going to be cooperating, and
Right.
it's going to be beautiful.
Right. No, I tell people all the time, peak bloom is overrated. What you want to hit is the bloom that's right for you. It's like the weather. There's no such thing as bad weather, and there's no such thing as bad bloom. It's just you need to dress appropriately, right? And so and manage that
Yes,
expectation.
exactly.
So, well, fantastic. And so for the people that have been to the Tulip Festival every year for the last 39 years, and this is year 40, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to make sure they visit all four gardens.
Oh,
Each
I know.
one is different. It's exciting to have you that joined us this year, Garden Roslyn that came on with the festival last year. And it is just delightful to have Tulip Valley Farms, Garden Roslyn, still have Rosengarten, still have Tulip Town, and be able to go and see how many other things you get to do that you're going to see just because they're beautiful.
Well,
And
yes,
they are asking nothing from you.
right.
And they're just there for you to look at. And
Yes.
it's glorious.
Well, and tulips are personal, and I think that's the thing that surprised me the most as I organize my life around tulips now is that is the part that I enjoy the most is we're doing something that is significant for our community and of course for my family and our friends, but also it's a face full of significance for people that really choose to celebrate spring or connections or delight and inspire through tulips. So Cindy, do you have a favorite tulip?
Not really. I
Okay.
like them. I love red tulips.
Uh-huh.
And there's a couple of the big ruffle ones that
Oh
are
yeah.
almost like a peony. They're, you know,
Mhm.
because some of them are about that big around. And then the delicate ballerina ones that have just the
Mhm.
little teeny sprites coming off the
Right.
ends that are just gorgeous. And then it's delightful because you know some of the real early guys are just not very tall.
Right. Yeah.
And see that bloom, that first bloom is kind of I don't know if you have crocus or snowdrops
Mhm.
at your house or gardens. Um, because we don't know what your gardens precisely will look like yet
No.
because they haven't bloomed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the really cool part about this
It
is
is.
brand new.
Yeah.
And how many times you get to find something that's absolutely brand new?
Right. No, we are so excited about that. So excited. Well,
And so I like all the varietals of tulips, and you know they're just gorgeous,
yeah.
and they
No,
make me
absolutely.
smile.
So I was talking with our friend Julie Bergmeyer today from Visit Skagit, on the creative side. She came out and she was asking me about all of the different classifications of the biggest tulip festival in the United States and the best this and I was unpacking it for her because I've also studied that. And she said, well, what about this? And so, and we'll inject some controversy in this, but when people are calling out, we won't call out by name some of the other tulip festivals. I know a lot of the different growers and stuff at those places because they're all great and they all are celebrating tulips in their own way. But one of the things that Julie and I were kind of discussing is that in terms of acreage, it's hard to find a tulip festival, at least in North America, that has as many acres in bloom for as long as we do. And of course, that's by virtue of our friends at Washington Bowl with the hundreds of acres that they grow. And then by virtue of our geography and our cool maritime the climate, we're able to keep our bloom for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the weather. Of course, in 2021, it was 6 weeks that we had fantastic color. And there are some places that grow for 4 to 6 days. If your spring is measured in minutes in the south, then tulips might be the thing for you. But well, the comparison is a thief of joy, and you also have been in contact with a lot of different festivals. What is the thing that is most unique in your experience and as you've been around all the different festivals about the Skagit Valley Tulip Festival that really stands out?
Well, the most unique part is that we have a an entity, Washington Bulb Company slash Rosengarten, same company, different kind of roles with those two names, but they grow tulips. They raise tulips from little guys to big guys, and they have a year-round operation. And they let you go into the fields. I visited Australia. You are not allowed into tulip production fields.
Right.
In Kukenhof, you don't get to go to the fields. You go over there.
Right.
No. And in fact, on the island of Tasmania, they had barbed wire fences all around them.
Yeah.
That it was very clear you're not allowed here. And for instance, the Tulip Time Festival in Holland, Michigan, has a lovely park, and they plant a ton of tulips in their town. There's probably about a 1 acre side of actually gardens that you wander through. Everybody in Skagit Valley is bigger than that.
Right. Yeah.
All of the growers are, and all of the gardens are. And Albany, New York has a tulip festival. And I've talked to folks from that, and they go, wow, those are the pictures of okay. Yeah, you guys win.
Right. No, and that's why I bring it up and I say it's controversial, because when I see those lists that say, Skagit Valley is the second biggest tulip festival, I said, I don't know what you're counting. If you're right outside of Detroit and you have 1 million people come through and see 4.5 acres of tulips, like my parking lot is that size. And again, it is, and not to toot our own horn here, but I really think it's important that we continue to and it's funny, because it's a maxim in any agriculture. It doesn't matter what you grow, it matters what you can sell. And so much of what you do is selling, and so much of what we as growers or even as community members can do is to take pride in what we do and share the stories and the impact of what tulips mean for us. Because again, flowers are personal, and tulips are the most recognizable flower in the world. And so as we lean into being if we're not the biggest, then we're certainly the best. Just ask me, right? Just ask us. There's the royal us that I'm going to trot out. But for those people who really want to see what is I wouldn't even say arguably, it is absolutely the most spectacular tulip festival in North America. We certainly welcome them to what. And then if they don't even want to say Skagit, they can say Tulip Valley. So I will give them permission. We are Tulip Valley. That's we'll continue to educate people on the proper pronunciation of the Skagit Valley Tulip Festival. But Cindy, anything that you want to cover that we didn't touch on? This has been a great conversation.
It has been a wonderful conversation, and I think that people that live here should remember to take the time to go out there and see that thing of beauty, to take that pause in the life and go see those tulips. There's lots of opportunities when you live here to take a drive in the evening and go see the tulips blooming, stop at a garden. And I've been at everybody's gardens, and usually that last hour of the day on a Tuesday afternoon, it's not very busy, and It's just delightful. And it's really worth it. And then to bear in mind that tourism is one of the industries that has, I won't say no impact, because everything has an impact, but it's low. We don't have to build more roads. We don't have to build more schools. We don't have to build more housing. We don't have to build more infrastructure to host people for a period of time. It allows those folks that have told me that work at our area restaurants and get extra tips and shifts during the Tulip Festival. They get to go on their vacation once a year.
Right.
It allows that young man that told one of our car dealership partners a long time ago He wanted to buy this new used car. And he's having trouble saving, and he kept coming back and said, please. And the guy kept kind of moving that car to the back of the lot because he wanted the kid to be able to get his car. After the Tulip Festival, he came in with the money to buy his car because he had been able to earn enough. And we've had the outlet center in Burlington has called this the second coming of Christmas, because people come here and their impact is minimal. It's for really a short amount of time, and really it's for those Saturday and Sundays during the month of April. And they leave those dollars and they let us do a variety of both personal and public things. Probably one of the best public things you can think of that has happened with Tulip Festival dollars is the water park that the Kiwanis helped put in Mount Vernon. That Kiwanis group has $100,000 approximately a year that they're able to give away because of their earnings with the Kiwanis Salmon Barbecue.
Right.
And the reason they have the barbecue on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays is, guess what the busiest days of the barbecue are? When they had it for 23 days, and they realized that they could concentrate on doing it really well those 3 days,
right,
and make as much to give back to the community. And so, and that story goes on and on with the art groups that are able to give a scholarship to an up and coming artist, to the students that are able to get volunteer hours for their high school letter and volunteerism. Those stories are everywhere of the very positive impact that the Tulip Festival and tourism in the Valley have. And it's just fun to share our corner of the world and share it. And then the folks can go back to their homes, because it lets us keep this rich agricultural valley. And we need to keep that soil and ag alive here in the valley to allow us to continue to have the special things we have here in Skagit Valley.
Absolutely. The tourism, technically, it's an export, right? And it's scalable, and for us, it's approachable, right? As far as things that we can, that I know, even my own business being a first year, business in farming, and nobody, I've often said I'm not in my right mind, because nobody would start a new business coming, facing an economic downturn, and especially as a farm. But it's because of the opportunity to do good in significant ways. And then, as you hit the nail on the head, it's an opportunity for us to do things that are resilient and vibrant for our agricultural economy, and yet the adjacent economic opportunities for hospitality, for services, for some of the other industries. We cannot isolate agriculture and just focus straight on that, because it does affect, there's environmental constraints, and there's environmental opportunities, right? And we spend a lot of time, and I was talking to some growers the other day, potato growers, and they were chuckling because they said nobody will spend more time educating our populace, our urban neighbors about agriculture than Andrew Miller, right? And I think that's a scary thing, because I didn't go to law school to tell people about how tulips are grown, or why it's so important that people come and enjoy our agricultural community, or our rural community at all, but then also go home and talk to their legislators about why it is that they need to be more informed on some of the struggles, challenges, and opportunities for agriculture, especially in Western Washington. And so it's a fascinating role that you have. It's a fascinating opportunity for us in our business as well. And I'm so very grateful for you and for the work that you do and that your organization does. And we're going to have a spectacular bloom this year, whenever it decides.
Yes, we are.
And I look forward to seeing you out in our fields, and we're really excited to also the volunteers and everybody on the Hill too, because we do have, of course, we're introducing Neighbors Night, and
now what day is that?
That is on the 20th, so April 20th, and that's sponsored by Helping Hands Food Bank. They're involved in that, and so it's a Thursday.
So my guess is you have to show up with some food. to get in the door?
Well, that would be good. Or you'll be fed one way or the other, right? And so our
okay.
doors will be open, and we're also in, we'll have night bloom going that night. So nobody's seen night bloom before, and so nobody can say, "Oh, I've seen it all." So I actually have not even seen night bloom. Well, we did a little bit the other night as a teaser, but it's going to be fantastic. So,
but there was no flowers blooming yet.
there weren't. No, so we're going to make our own this year. We're going to make our own weather and create our own color. Just watch us. So. Good times.
Well, that'll be delightful to watch.
Yeah, I can hardly wait. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for spending this time with us and our guests and talking about the Tulip Festival this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. I'm Andrew from Tulip Valley Farms, and we're so excited to invite and share our community and the bloom with you this year. Hope to see you soon.